And how to breathe, spinning through identity, reveal another pretty little.
Okay. Get my jitters out. 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 Mm. Mm, 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 mm. Okay. Lock in. Try some of my juice. Um. So, uh, I'm Cheyenne. I am a newlywed. I'm going on almost a year of marriage. Well, a year of marriage. And I went through a lot in my first year. A lot in my first year of marriage. But one of the things that I really wanted to talk about was my miscarriage. I had a miscarriage at almost 3 months. And I actually didn't know I was pregnant. I really didn't know that I was pregnant. Like, I had some symptoms, but I thought maybe it was just my hormones. And it actually turned out that I was pregnant. But now, 5 months later, I want to talk about my experience with an at-home miscarriage. And I went through an at-home miscarriage that was completely unmedicated. The only medication that I had was after I actually gave birth and everything. I had to take Midol for the pain. Well, I didn't have to, but I did take Midol for the pain. But nevertheless, let's move on. Um, so I had pregnancy symptoms for about 2 months before I found out that I was pregnant. And I was still basically getting my cycle, except for my cycle maybe was just like spotting instead of actual, period, a regular cycle. Um, Excuse me, oh my gosh. So I found out I was pregnant in October. And when I went to my doctor, I went to my OBGYN and she didn't see anything in my uterus. She saw nothing in my uterus. I told her, hey doc, this is what I'm feeling. These are the symptoms I've had. Blase blase, whoop de whoop. And she was like, okay, great. Let's get you on the ultrasound table. So she got me on the ultrasound table. And first they did a sonogram. I think that's what it's called when it goes, just belly top. And then she did an transvaginal ultrasound, which is, the little rotisserie. Um, so when they did both of them, when she did the sonogram, they didn't see anything. When she did the rotisserie, the transvaginal, she said, I can tell that your ovaries did something, but I don't know what. I don't know what they're up to. So I'm like, you don't know. I don't know. We don't know. Somebody got to know, you know? So she's like, okay, well, before you go, just take a pregnancy test and we'll see you the next time. We'll get you on the schedule. And I said, okay, great. So I took my pregnancy test. And so I live in Central Florida, but the part of Central Florida I live in, it's kind of like on the I don't know how to describe it. I'm not far from Winter Park, but I'm far from Winter Park. So she called me on my way home and she was like, hey, your pregnancy test came back inconclusive. I'm like, what does that mean? And so the girl from the office was just like, can you turn around and come take it again? I was like, no, I cannot. I've already left. I'm in traffic and I'm on the way home. I'm almost home. I was in Altamont by the time they called me. And I mean Altamont as in I was leaving Altamont, getting on I-4. So I got home and my husband was like, just take a pregnancy test at home. And I was like, I need a shot. And I hate to say that because, I'm a follower of Christ, but I said that was my first thing. Not I need to pray. It was I need a shot. And during this time, I was still praying. I was still worshiping. I'm in my Bible. trying to make it to Bible study. I'm going to church every Sunday. So my first instinct should have been pray, but I had stopped drinking alcohol completely, not knowing what was going on with my body, and I didn't want anything to make it worse. So that was my first thought. I've been craving alcohol for so long. I literally let my lips touch the brim of the bottle. But nevertheless, I got home, took a micro shot, micro sip, and I took a micro sip, took my pregnancy test, because I started to think, what if I actually am pregnant and I just took a sip of alcohol? And yeah, my pregnancy test came back positive. It was positive. So that was in October, and that pregnancy test, actually, I took it 2 or 3 days after going to my OBGYN and her not seeing anything. So I took that pregnancy test, and I immediately called my cousin because she's a nurse. And I called her, and I just took like 7 pregnancy tests or something like that. I was just taking pregnancy test after pregnancy test. I'm like, am I pregnant for real? Oh my gosh. So after that, maybe I was also going through a lot in my life during that time, and my body was really, really stressed. Really stressed. I found out I was pregnant, and then maybe a week or 2 later, I went to my local pregnancy center, took a pregnancy test with them. They gave me some resources. They gave me prenatals, and they were really supportive. I got what's that called? Breastfeeding bags. I got newborn diapers. I got a pregnancy journal. I got a lot of literature that I needed. So I did that, and then I had this feeling within my body that I needed to go to the doctor. I kept hearing in my spirit, go to the doctor, Cheyenne, go see a doctor. But I wasn't, to be transparent, I wasn't in a space where I was actually, listening and being coherent, to what Jesus was telling me. So in November, I got my first ultrasound, and I saw my baby is about 8 weeks and 4 days, a little shy of 3 months. And so November was my first ultrasound, and then it was like, I don't know, it was a little bit before Thanksgiving when I had to go to the ER because my body is stressed so bad. I wasn't eating, and I ended up passing out a couple times. Once my driveway, then I got up and I walked in my living room and kind of like fell out. So I went to the ER, and when I was at the ER, they told me that my baby's heart stopped. They couldn't detect any cardiac activity. They told me that my HCG was progressing wonderfully. I was, how I had healthy levels, but they just couldn't detect any cardiac activity. Now, when they did do my ultrasound at the ER, it was kind of different than what I've ever had. When I had my first transvaginal, all the transvaginals I've had, my bladder had to be completely empty, but this one, they didn't empty my bladder. And even though I told them, hey, I gotta go to the can. They weren't, it was just like, okay, well, let's get this done and da-da-da-da-da. So, but nevertheless, they said that they couldn't find any, cardiac activity. So I needed to take something to progress to miscarriage. And I said, no. If I'm going to have, if my baby's going to come out of me, it's going to be when my body and my baby are ready for me. Ready to come out. And it was the most devastating thing I've ever been through. It was the most pain I've ever felt. Ever. So I ended up going to my OBGYN. Mind you, the ER doctor said that they were going to have one of their OBGYNs that they work with call me. That OBGYN didn't call me till January. It was like January 11th. And nevertheless, I digress. Moving on. So November came. I had that whole thing happen when they couldn't find the baby's heartbeat. I went to my OBGYN, and she had her tech look at my baby and try to use a Doppler to find heartbeat, and they couldn't find a heartbeat either. So then I was really, really devastated, And she said give it about 2 weeks and everything should happen. And my body was exactly 2 weeks later, December 14th, I ended up, it was really December 12th or 13th, I started to have like stomach cramps and things. Mind you, when I was pregnant, I was always craving spicy foods, and I mean spicy foods. Like, me and seafood boils were inseparable. My husband spent so much money on just seafood boils themselves. Seafood boils, hot chips, hot wings, that he spent a lot of money on those things. But it was for, his girls, so it is what it is. But on December 12th, I started to feel some discomfort. On December 13th, that's when the pain really started, and the pain was pretty bad. It was bad to the point where I thought maybe if I went to the bathroom, it might help, or if possibly I, sat on the toilet for a minute, I thought it might help. I thought maybe it was just because I ate spicy food that I was feeling those pains. But December 14th, I ended up going to the ER because at 7 o'clock in the morning, the pain was so bad. I called a family friend who's a nurse, and she said, I started to describe what was going on, and I told her I was pregnant. She said, well, unfortunately, you may be losing your baby. And at 7 a.m., I had excruciating pain on a 1 to 10, rate. It was about a 12, and it all of a sudden stopped. Okay, the pain stopped, and then it came back around 10 a.m. And around 10 a.m., I was able to get up. I called my cousin, who's also a nurse, and I told her, cuz, this is what's going on. And she was saying, girl, do not eat Chinese food, do not eat spicy foods, do not eat seafood boils. If you do eat them, eat it at a minimum. You're trying to put yourself in the hospital. And she was telling me her experience when she had her 2 kids. And I was like, girl, I was just eating my cravings. I was literally eating my cravings. I never thought it would, do anything too crazy to my body. So when I gave birth, I'm going to make a second part.
Spinning through identity, reveal another pretty little scheme. Save her mind.